Hey folks, Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation. Welcome back to another Monday Night Coaches Chat. It is Monday, August 25th. And this week I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about fall planning as it relates to durability training, how we're going to get you ready for next year. We're in August right now. People are transitioning out of their key races, starting to think about the winter, starting to think about next year, what they want to do. And for me as a coach, this is one of the more exciting periods of the year. When you're training for a race or when you're training for, your key event, whatever that is, everything you do, how you eat, how you swim your bike or run, how you're sleeping, all of that is focused on one goal. And that's a very powerful, challenging time. But it's challenging because a lot of what you're trying to do is fit everything you're doing into this tiny box for a specific event on a specific day with very targeted results. It's like planning to get a straight A on a test that's only administered once on one day. You only got one shot for it. It's a lot of pressure, right? What's exciting to me about this time of year when we think about transitioning from the after period of your big race and then starting the window before you get into your true winter training with Endurance Nation is the opportunity. All of a sudden you get to step back and say, hey, wait a minute. Where am I? And you get to use your recent race and the work that you've done this season up until that race as a benchmark, as an opportunity to kind of reflect on the progress you've made, and then start making some plans moving forward. So I really enjoy this time. This is the time of year for me as an athlete that historically, almost since I was a high schooler, I've really enjoyed, because this is the time of year when everyone else falls asleep at the wheel. They take time off, they pick up a new hobby, they do lots of other stuff, and they show up in March or April just as competitive as you, wanting to be awesome with all these awesome goals. But the difference between you and them is that you've been thinking, even just at macro level, not going crazy, but you've been thinking about how to plan out your 2015. You started that in August, September, October. You're in a much bigger plan. You're always moving that widget forward. They wake up in March, that widget's gone backwards for 6 months, and now they're going to try and figure out what to do with it. Good luck. Every year they're going to be starting the season from scratch, and they're never going to be able to catch up to you, super smart triathlete. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Specifically, I've got my notes here. I want to talk a little bit about building durability. And I say durability in the sense of I want to take the emphasis for your training away from performance metrics. How fast am I doing this run right now, and how's it going to connect to my race? How fast am I biking? What are my swim splits? Those are questions that really are a function of performance. And what's neat about this fall period of time, when we're sort of in between your earlier part of your year with that big race and the build up to it, and then the subsequent winter time when we get back into the numbers, really start trying to move your bike and run fitness. In that intermediary window, we've got lots of time to focus on stuff that you enjoy focusing on. And a huge part of that is just not obsessing about those numbers. It's so easy to get carried away and to put yourself in a place where you're just not happy about your training. Right? So durability, and the reason why I say durability, is that this is the kind of work that helps lay that foundation for future performance. And it does it in several different ways. First and foremost, it does it by making sure that you're doing good work without too hard work. You can't show up in the wintertime ready to crush it if you've been crushing it straight for 6 weeks after you crushed it all year. That only works in movies or with, World Wrestling Federation superstars who also happen to use steroids. Well, I didn't just say that. So when you think about how to be your best, a huge part of being your best is also about being smarter and focusing your energies on something that may pay longer-term dividends, hence the durability question. Okay? So when we talk about durability inside Endurance Nation, we have a 3-year plan for our athletes. And that 3-year plan is designed to help people move sort of along the experience spectrum and help them prioritize specific purchases, activities, workouts, focus points across their timeline. When everyone shows up, the first thing they say is, hi, my name is Timmy, I'm a beginner, I've never done a triathlon, but I want to swim better, bike faster, and run harder, and then have a faster race than my brother, and I want to be the best. You say, okay, that's a lot of moving parts, brother. Like, you can't do all of that. We prioritize things for you. But within the context of that 3-year plan, sometimes people kind of feel boxed in. What's neat about this fall period of time is you kind of get to play that pick your own adventure. And we, as your coaches, are here to support you. Okay? So the first thing you want to do in this time of year is obviously reach out to Coach Rich for your triathlon season roadmap. This is part of how we operate as a team. It's an opportunity for you to get our official input, what it means to build a year out, and to think strategically about how to organize our training plans and our resources, etc. Always important to have. But if you're ready to kind of read in between the lines and do a little bit more work, then stay tuned. Okay? So the first rule about doing some training here at the end of your season is you have to keep things fun. Okay? The second much, you can't have work now. You just worked in season. You're going to be working in the winter. And if you work in between the work, then you're a robot. It's not fun anymore. There's going to be burnout. You're going to wake up somewhere in March, April, May, June, July. You insert the month. And all you're going to want to do is take your bicycle and point it at the nearest bridge abutment and just stop the training, stop the madness, okay? There's got to be fun. So you want to pick something that's a challenge for you, something that excites you, something that is supported in your community or with your friends or by geographically where you live. In other words, it's not great to pick an open water swim focus if you live in a landlocked state with no open water. Not a great choice. Okay. So once we think about and you commit to getting involved in sort of a fall planning cycle, thinking about how to fill the space between your plans, the most important thing you can do now, after understanding that it needs to be fun, is to schedule it out. The way that we schedule inside NerdStation is that we reverse engineer your schedule, working backwards from that next key element of your season, which in most cases is probably the out season, which starts typically last week of October, first week of November. You can find that information on the website. I don't have it handy right now. Once you have that information, then we can back plan. We back plan from that by saying we want at least 10 days, ideally 14 days, of some light activity, some rest. Anything more than 2 weeks and you start to really kind of go backwards from a fitness standpoint, anything less than 2 weeks and you risk carrying the fatigue from earlier parts of the year or even the whole season that you've built up to so far into your out season, and that simply doesn't work. We need that break, we need that recovery period, rejuvenation, so we can come back and hit it hard when we hit the out season. Okay? So we recommend 10 to 14 days, I mentioned that. And then you want to define, once you know what you found your OS start, you work back about 14 days before that, and then you figure out where you are now. That window there gives you an idea of how many available weeks you have to fill with this fall training exercise. And that's very important. You want to understand if you get 2 weeks, 1 week, 6 weeks, it may change your perspective on how you're trying to structure things. Okay? So first and foremost, we want to identify that number, that amount of time that you have available to you. Second thing we want to do is think about any fall events. Some of you already have picked events. You've picked a half marathon or a marathon or some group 24-hour road racing or a Muddy Buddy or whatever you may have picked up. If you have those events, then in some ways they've already kind of dictated what you're going to be doing this fall. If you've got a half marathon coming up at the end of October, then you kind of have to train for it. We're not going to have you go off and just make up something you want to train for. You've got the schedule. So in many ways, if you already have a fall event, that could very well dictate to you at the outset here what you'll be filling this fall time with. So we want to be mindful of that. Okay. If you are looking to focus on something, if the run is your focus, you're certainly welcome to pick a half marathon. That's great. We try to discourage people from signing up for the full marathon just because of the full cost associated with building up and then recovering from it. It's a multi-week exercise, and most triathletes are simply not patient enough to do the recovery work required to fully absorb an open marathon and the costs associated with that. Okay, so a half marathon or a 10K or something like that, or 15K, those things are great. Way to go. Okay, if you have a triathlon on the calendar, then again your time is already taken. Just have fun with it. Don't get too carried away like you were for your A race. Let the race come to you. Get in there, warm up. Take the expectations off yourself. Take the pressure off yourself, and see what you can do when you kind of people don't perform well on race days. They just don't do well managing their own expectations, the stress that they put on themselves, and that's almost like a form of self-sabotage. So if you do have something like a triathlon on the books, then just enjoy it, have fun with it. Maybe you're there with some friends, or you're getting some people into it, or it's a local race, whatever it is. Just have fun. If you remember, this sport is really cool, and so too are the people who do it. And once you get really geeked out, and you're always competing. The true luster, the true awesomeness of our sport really kind of starts to fade, and we don't ever want to lose sight of that. Okay. So if you don't have any fall events, then we can start to define your focus area, and generally look at the bike or the run. I don't say the swim because the learning cycle for swimming is generally so short, in that if you learn a new stroke change today, you can probably carry it for maybe 1 or 2 weeks before it starts to fade on you and you need to pick up a new tip. So really getting into swimming now, it almost means that you're going to have to do a lot of work just to sustain any gains that you make now all the way through the winter into your next season, which is really not worth it. So unless swimming is just a big social activity for you, or something that kind of keeps you connected or grounded or sane or safe or whatever it is, if you don't have that need for swimming, then I recommend that we focus on the bike and the run. Okay. The bike is a great focus for people in their first year and most of their second year people here on the team. The run is a focus that people in year 2 or year 3 can look at, and the reason why I skip over year 1 is that for most beginners, the amount of run volume you do in year 1 in and of itself is such a shock to your non-triathlon self from before that the cost of adding running to that is too high. Plus, in general, first-year athletes, I don't think really respect the level of fatigue they've accrued, whereas by year 2, you've gone through a full cycle and you really become a lot more judicious in managing your efforts and so on. Okay, so let me talk about cycling first, because I think that is a great option for most people. Ideally, you can get your hands on a cycling group, like a local training group. Maybe there's a bike shop near you, or a cycling club that does an organized ride. They post it online, or everybody just knows to show up at Wheelworks at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Then great. Then you want to be part of that ride and really start understanding cycling from a group perspective, and learn from the riders around you, and let that experience kind of raise the bar for you. It will also get you out of your comfort zone. It's going to force you to ride hills hard and cruise other areas. It's very antithetical to how we train as triathletes. So it's a good change up for this time of year. We just want to make sure that you're safe, not doing anything risky when you're out there on those bikes. These are, if you can't get with a group, then you can do sessions where you try and ride like a roadie, where you push the hills but cruise the flats not too hard, or where you strategically fight for town lines and let other markers go, and what it means to sprint and out-sprint people. These are little games that you can play to kind of keep yourself engaged and very aware of how your ability to manage your bicycle, handle your bicycle, really will start to set you apart from the competition, right? You can perhaps find some new routes, some new hills to climb. That's always fun. You can use Map My Ride or Strava, follow some people, find their routes around you. Bonus item for you would be some kind of fall century or something else you can kind of sink your teeth into. It's an opportunity to build that baseline fitness. But when it's on the bike, the cost of that fitness is very, very low. Easy for you to recover from. Just takes a lot of time depending on the length of your event and travel to or from that event. But again, it's not like it's a racing event. It's just a fun event. We want you to kind of get back to your roots here and enjoy what it means to cycle. And when you add something like a fall century or a fall long ride to the plan, that's just another kind of peak across your year. You're getting to insert some volume, and that also will pay dividends down the line. Okay. The next option that I want to talk about is run training options. If cycling is not on your agenda, or if you're year 2 or year 3 athlete, then running is on the table. When we think about this type of training for the fall, I think a lot about frequency versus intensity or volume. I think it's super easy to just say, I'm going to focus on my running. I'm going to run an hour a day. Well, you do that across a week, that's 7 hours of running. If you run 5 miles in an hour, that's 35 miles of running, which is probably more than you're running on your baseline right now. And that can really kind come back to bite you later. And the hardest part about that run fatigue is precisely just how long it takes for you to shed that fatigue. It's very easy for you to do the work, but it's hard for your body to process. So you have to be very, very mindful of that, which is why we use frequency versus intensity and volume as your primary metric. So just make it part of your routine. Get up, run 30 minutes, get a cup of coffee, and then have a shower. Start every day. All of a sudden, you got 7 by 30 minutes or 3.5 hours of running, and that's just basic running outside of anything you might do as a general workout for you. So there's lots of neat ways you can kind of make running part of your routine and make the training exciting or at least engaging, right, on a daily basis. Again, just like the bike, I recommend trying to find new routes or new areas, maybe do some off-road trail running, something safe. Maybe you'll go running with friends, new or old, and really just kind of step back and enjoy the running for what it is versus putting pressure on yourself. The bonus item here for running, like the bike, the bonus was a false entry or something similar. In the run case, it's a half marathon, ideally in that October time frame, early to mid-October, give you enough time to build up to it, but also recover and process things for the rest of your year. I think it's all too easy to get carried away and try and say, oh, my threshold power on the bike is 250 watts. I know Coach Patrick said take it easy and just chill for a couple of weeks, but I think if I work right hard right now, I may get it up to 260 watts or something like that. And then you spend all of that capital, all of that hard-earned energy to make that happen, and you miss out sort of on that bigger picture of what it means to be able to string that performance together. So that's ultimately what we want to avoid. So these are all safe choices, kind of keep you sane, but still keep it fun, especially the fun, but I can't say it enough. Okay? So I've talked about the bike and the run and sort of general fall training, just to give you some tips to avoid. I've talked a lot about what you should do. Here's some tips on what you shouldn't do. Okay? Don't get crazy with your schedule. If you start juggling things and changing appointments to fit the schedule in, then you're treating it too seriously. Okay? This schedule should come after everything else. It's not as important, and that's fine. Okay? The last thing you also want to do is just have you start sacrificing things, giving up stuff to make these workouts happen. These workouts are just not that critical. These are workouts to stay fit, not workouts for you to complete an Ironman or something as a massive undertaking. So don't get in that habit of making big sacrifices. This is the time when life does push back, and it's okay. You have to absorb it. Right? If you're dreading a workout, if you're really not liking it, then something's not right. Either you're too fatigued, or you need a different workout, or you're a little burned out, whatever it is. So keep it fun, keep it interesting. If you need help kind of coming up with different versions of workouts, we have a full library in my head that can totally help you. But I can't stress enough that it needs to be fun, it needs to be an accessible goal. It's just hard enough. Something that'll kind of fill your allotted time and keep you engaged. Right? We also want you to avoid setting targets for the race. If your target race time is 8 minutes 30 seconds per mile, and it's December and you're training, and all of a sudden you start pulling out those numbers and trying to do the math and trying to run to those numbers, you're going to put yourself in a bad spot. It's not the structure of the program across the year is designed to both build your familiarity with training and certain training methodologies, but it's also designed to help you kind of accumulate training load and shed that training load in a systemic, easy to process sort of way. And when you start to change up that order of things, you can really put yourself in a bad space. Just like by saying, hey, I normally bike 180 watts, but I really want to bike 195. Here I am in August biking 185. Is this a bad workout? Is this workout failing? That's just not a place where you want to be. We want you to be active and engaged, but just not so worried about the results. There'll be time enough for you to focus on that when it matters. Don't burn that capital, that ability to manage your emotions, and don't take that out of the equation here, right? And then finally, the last and perhaps biggest pitfall we want to avoid is compromising this end of season rest window. The reason why we backplan to make sure you have at least 10 days, ideally 14, is that we know how important that rest period is. It's all too easy to carry your momentum, roll right from the late October, or say half marathon into the out season, or start the out season, but then 3 weeks in, you're doing this marathon, you got to recover, and you miss those first 3 weeks really, and then you're missing the next 4 weeks. You're up 7 weeks, and that's how much time do you really need to have or want to have. And when you don't give yourself the time to process the work you've done, it's very insidious. You don't really feel like you need it. You can easily talk yourself out of it, but it slowly starts to creep up on you. Your resting heart rate goes up. Sleep performance overall goes down. You're more agitated. In general, you are, simply not happy about now moving from this fun wintertime into a place where real work starts to happen. And that's an important distinction. I think it's all too easy to get carried away and miss that element. Okay? So that's Coach Patrick Me talking about what it means to kind of manage the fall and that durability element. Would love to see who we have here in the room. Tonight we have Don, Doug, Eric, Jay, Laura, Mike, and Mike. Hey guys, what's up? Sorry I got a little issue with my contact here tonight. That's the generic stuff that we're talking about. Would love to hear if you guys have any questions for me about my presentation or about anything else that you guys have going on. Why don't you guys go ahead and type those questions real fast. I'm going to pull these contacts out of my eye because they're killing me. All right, but I'm not going to do that on the camera, so bear with me. I guess it would have been kind of cooler for me to do that stuff on camera. That also really freaks people out when you touch your own eyeballs. I've seen people literally nearly lose their lunch because someone's touching their eyeballs. For me, having done Mont Tremblant and really kind of focused my year on building up to here, although I really only focused for 12 weeks on my specific training, I'm in a place now where I have a lot of fatigue, and I can feel it when I work out. I can feel it now. I did, a short swim today, and I might as well swim 5 miles. I'm exhausted, and so I know that my build up to Kona now is, while important, is still, governed by those same rules. I can't do too much. I can't try and do swim, bike, and run and really build myself up. If I do that, I'm going to put myself in a place where I'm really going to start to hurt. And not only will that race suffer, but so too will my ability to recover my confidence and everything. Those are easy pitfalls that we can avoid. Okay. All right. Let's see what questions do you guys have for me. Doug says, Eric says, how often should I be doing half marathons? Great question, Eric. In general, we recommend definitely one in the spring as you're wrapping up the out season. It's a great final benchmark for you. So if you're doing the November out season, that's generally like mid-February or late February or early March. Is a great window for that final run testing benchmark. You can do one in the fall as well, just as especially if you are have had a good year and your goals for that half marathon are not outside the current level of fitness. If you're telling me you run half marathon in your half iron as 2 hours and 30 minutes, and now you want to go out and run at 1:30 just to open half, drop an hour. That's a little different. That's a little different undertaking. But if you're out there just trying to get a run in, maybe go close to your speed or a little bit faster, but we're not going to kill yourself en route to that, then you can safely add one in the fall as well. Doug says, sorry I missed the first part of the presentation, so if you covered this, I apologize. Is right now a good time to work on body composition before the out season? Doug, always thinking, I love it. I think my answer to that really is guided by how much work is it for you to focus on your body composition in the out season. For some people, focusing on body composition is just eating better a little bit. And it's easy to do, and just kind of get lazy sometimes. For other people, trying to lose 2 or 3 pounds is all-out war. It's it's tanks, artillery, scorched earth policy in the pantry. No more dining out. Only eat out of tiny shake containers. Punish self with a rubber band if I eat a Cheeto or something like that. So if you fall into that latter category where managing your food is a negative thing, it really kind of burns you out, then I wouldn't do it because we want that to be associated with training. But I will say that overall for me, I've learned over time, especially as a bigger guy, I race at 180, but I'm only 185, 188. I know the cost of that weight, and I know the cost, how easy it is to put it on, and how hard it is to get it off. So I do recommend being judicious in your body composition process, and I recommend doing your body composition in a holistic manner. Not just taking a bunch of supplements and peeing your brains out and calling that lost water, lost weight. Use this time of year to make some really good healthy food choices. A lot of things that I'm doing right now include adding recipes to my cooking repertoire. So I have some other stuff to count on when it's in season, and preparing other general foods, sort of longer term cooking, just to things for the winter and fall. I love the fall and winter. You can cook up a stew in a crock pot, or sauce, or chili, or whatever it is. You can start cooking like that, and making some really yummy, savory food just by planning ahead. So I'd rather you spend your time now framing your work around body composition in a positive way, and let that weight loss and that change happen systemically. And then when you are full on training the out-season, then it's time you can really kind of dive in and make that work. Okay. Don says, when you talk about running 30 minutes per day, for example, this will be instead of the transition plan. Yeah, that would be in addition to your transition plan, but it would be running 30 minutes a day. You wouldn't do the run workout also that day, but if your day said, hey, swim for 30 minutes, and then you're going to add this 30-minute run, that's a no-brainer. If your plan says run an hour, and you're going to do this 30-minute run, and say that's a no-brainer. If you just wake up and say I'm going to run 90 minutes a day for as many days as I can, that's not a no-brainer. That's just a dumb thing to do. We don't want to do that by any means. So I would replace the runs in the transition plan with these transition workouts, and do these other transition workouts first before you take on any other sort of strenuous activity. Like if you're trying to decide, do I do this full FTP workout or not, instead of making a judgment call about that and then getting the run, and I'd rather you run first, and then you can solve how you're going to handle intensity and manage other things. Okay. Doug, Eric, no problem. Always happy to help. Again, like I said, this part of the year for me is really fun because the general rules don't apply. You've got a lot of flexibility. You can pick something you want to focus on. It could be body composition. It could be running form, consistent running. It could be something related to cycling. I spent a lot of time this year learning how to take care of and maintain my own bicycle. Thanks to my good friend YouTube. You may have heard of that website. Really very helpful. And so for me, I think about, wow, so much of what I did as an athlete was that super secret underground training, get really fit when no one else was doing it. You have that opportunity here at this time of year to really raise the bar in terms of your performance in a healthy way, not in a negative way. And it starts by learning some basic skills, and learning how to manage fatigue and certain workouts and so on. But as you get better about managing that, and you have some flexibility in your schedule, and you want to start adding more volume and more training, then you certainly have the option to do that inside the organization. We're happy to help out. Don, thanks so much for the Kona well wishes. I appreciate it. Still processing. Still trying to come to terms with it. I'm actually posting some stuff to the forum this week as I ask for feedback from you guys on how to handle my build-up for the swim, the bike, and the run. Okay. That said, I am exhausted right now, totally dying. It is 9:31, so I'm going to cut it off here. If you guys have other questions, you can find me in my very backed up and slowly working micro forum. Happy to answer you there, or obviously you have my phone number as well. You can text me. I'll make sure that you're all set and ready for anything that's going to come your way, whether it's this fall, this winter, or next season. Okay? Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. This is Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation, home of the world's fastest, largest online triathlon team and the first time finish guarantee. I look forward to seeing you guys online or at the races.